So I was a fairly traditional teacher, trying to deliver the canon and working out of standard textbooks when I was first introduced to John Green by a student. Thank you, Breen Anderson. She was all excited about this book, Looking for Alaska. So I checked it out, and it wasn't long after that I had my first opportunity to see John speaking at the LA Times Festival of Books in 2012. That was great, but I passed up the chance to go to his signing line because it would have meant giving up the chance to see a lot of other authors. I had just discovered Donald and Miller's book, The Book Whisperer, and in between Miller's book and the chance to meet so many living, active authors, I was electrified. Several months later, I came across Hank's Nerd's Guide to Football, and it wasn't long before I went back and watched all of Brotherhood 2.0, then all the rest of the Vlogbrothers videos, plus things like The Brain Scoop, the Lizzie Bennett Diaries, and anything else related. By summer, I was thinking of starting my own channel, and I bought my first ticket to VidCon. VidCon completely blew me away. I went to see Hank and John every chance I got. I asked John to autograph my laptop, the first author to do so. He was surprised. I was ecstatic. I continued watching the Vlogbrothers and became a regular commenter, although with the size of the Nerdfighter community, I didn't expect either Hank or John to take any notice of little old me. But by the 2014 LA Times Festival of Books, I was not going to miss the chance to see John's signing line. It was a good meeting, but of course he had no idea who I was, which is not at all surprising. Then, about 6 weeks later, June 11th, just a couple weeks before VidCon, John plays FIFA on the Hank Games channel, and he developed a new strategy for the Wimbly Wombleys. Out for revenge against a hated rival, John planned to deliberately throw some games. Now, even though this is a video game and a virtual team, I felt incredibly disappointed by this exhibition of poor sportsmanship, and I said so, in 3 typically long-winded comments where I mentioned I was old enough to be his father. I wasn't the only one upset. These were by far the most disliked videos John had ever uploaded. But my comments floated at or near the top of the top comments list, and I feared, no, dreaded, that this was the only way I would ever attract the attention of someone I admired so greatly, by chastising him. Not exactly the way to win friends and influence people. But I didn't really have any idea whether he'd noticed any of my comments in particular until we got to VidCon, when, as you might have seen in my previous video, this happened.
Oh, I'm not allowed to pose, I'm sorry. Yeah, you know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, hey, are you Steve?
Now, my original plan for that VidCon was to give John a letter asking him to look into the Donald and Miller book. It was, after all, the reason I had abandoned Hemingway and Faulkner and encouraged my students to read John Green books, after all. But when John asked, "Are you Steve?" I was really completely thrown off. Somehow, I still managed to stumble through my pitch and had a wonderful talk with both John and Hank.
Good. And when I'm not chastising, this is a very important letter. I'm only 2 years Nerdfighter, but I'm 20 years a classroom teacher.
Yeah.
And you can take this
Thank
and
you.
look at it when you can, or give it to somebody who's in charge of your whole educational program.
Yeah, we do have people who do a lot of work for that. Can I sign this?
Yes. Here, you want? Use this one.
I think I was also supposed to sign that guitar, sir.
No.
But as I walked away, I was still confused by one thing.
Are you Steve?
I'm Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks for coming. Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Are you Steve? I mean, did he know? It didn't seem like he could have possibly been reading my VidCon badge after all. And it wasn't really out of the question that he might have seen me and guessed. A 56-year-old man does kind of stick out in the line of your average Nerdfighters, but I hadn't asked him. And to be honest, it kind of drove me crazy.
Are you Steve? Hey, how's it going? Are you Steve? Hey, how's it going? Are you Steve? Hey, how's it going?
But I had one hope. I would see him again 6 weeks later, 2,500 miles across the country at LeakyCon. This time, I actually bought an extra copy of The Book Whisperer to give to John, filling it with an inscription that explained why I think this book is so important for anyone interested in trying to develop a love of reading and books among young people. I didn't get to give it to John personally, however. At LeakyCon, they were much stricter about their signing lines, and they came around and collected any gifts, cards, anything anyone had to give to John. So I put the book there. And I don't know for sure whether he ever got it or has ever had taken a look at it. I hope so, but at that time, I was frankly more worried about getting that question answered. Did he have any idea who I was when he asked, "Are you Steve?" Unfortunately, someone somewhere had decided that there would be no pictures or videos taken with John. So what happened next, you'll have to take my word for it. When it was my turn, I walked up to John and put it to him directly. When we had been at VidCon and he had said, "Are you Steve?" as I walked up, did he have any idea who I was? And here's where I feel bad. Let me point out that John had been on an exhaustive schedule to promote the Tiffios movie coming out ever since VidCon, and that was followed by an even more exhaustive trip to Africa with Bill Gates, not to mention serving on several panels at LeakyCon, and that I came at the very end of a long line of nerdfighters asking for autographs, so he had every right to be exhausted, and to be honest, his whole being looked sort of like the Puff after a bad run-in with a wicked typhoon. But John took a moment, listened to me, screwed up his face in a look of intense concentration, and finally, smiling, reassured me. Yes, he knew exactly who I was. And then, as if I weren't unsure enough, he elaborated. He had been well aware of me for many years. Many years? I had only known who John was for a couple years. There's no way he could have known me longer than that. But I couldn't find out any more. The line had to keep moving. So was John just confused? Was he just trying to be pleasant to the weird gray-haired old man out of place in the young adult world? He had looked and sounded so sincere, and he really seemed to think about it. I may never know, but I know I felt guilty in the next few days when it came out that John was suffering from viral meningitis, because suddenly, somehow, I knew I had broken John Green's brain. Thankfully, he seems to have recovered. Hopefully.
Hi, Mickey, Leah, Kevin, and Chuck, DFTBA. And Anchor Firm.